We're just 3 days away from rookies reporting to training camp and less than a week away from vets reporting. Is Ryan Poles going to bring in another vet via free agency? Rumors have been swirling about potential free agents for months, but with camp right around the corner, it's time to check what free agents still remain. Let's go ahead and get right into it. There's been zero news on the Yannick Ngakoue front, although he continues showing videos on social media where he does look healthy. Remember, he had the ankle surgery late in the season. I think a value deal of somewhere between $4 and $7 million. A 1-year deal would make a ton of sense for him to come back to Chicago. I know fans are split on this one. Some people love Yannick, some people don't like him. I think it's still up in the air whether or not he returns. He might be looking for a better deal elsewhere, but he is a consistent sack presence and he can get tackles for loss in the run game. Next up, there are rumors about cornerback Stephon Gilmore. I saw multiple articles and people talking about us potentially being favorites to sign Stephon Gilmore. I just don't get this one at all. He's a 34-year-old former first-round pick. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler and 2-time All-Pro. He spent last year with the Dallas Cowboys, but why on earth would he sign here? Cornerback is probably our deepest position group on the roster. Our defensive backfield is just loaded with talent. Sure, he could come in and battle Tyrique Stevenson and maybe even beat him out for that cornerback 2 job. And yes, that would actually improve our secondary, but I think Tyrique Stevenson is a breakout candidate after playing much better down the stretch last season. Do you really want to send him to the bench for a 34-year-old veteran? And also behind him, we have Terrell Smith, Jalen Jones, Josh Blackwell, Greg Stroman Jr., Reddy Stewart, and others. Signing a vet cornerback really doesn't make a ton of sense right now, but I wouldn't completely rule it out. More on that in just a moment. But I do not see us signing Stephon Gilmore. Another rumor floating around is former Packers tackle David Bakhtiari. He signed a huge deal with the Packers a few years back, but he's only started 12 games over the last 3 years after starting 12-plus games for 8 straight seasons in Green Bay. Last year, he had only 1 start, and he's had some major knee issues. His health is definitely a concern here, and on top of that, he's 33 years old. I don't really see us pursuing Bakhtiari, but bringing in competition for Braxton Jones or for the swing tackle job shouldn't be ruled out yet. If Bakhtiari is healthy and willing to come here on a cheap 1-year deal, maybe we'd look into it, but I'd say this one is very, very low odds. I think Ryan Poles is happy with Braxton Jones. I see Braxton Jones as potentially a top 10 tackle in the NFL if he can continue developing. But we also have rookie Karana Megaji. Depending on where he's at on his offseason recovery and how long it takes him to adjust to the NFL game, we could bring in another veteran offensive tackle. There are some other names out there. But I think if Ryan Poles adds another player, it's most likely going to come to the defensive line. So let's take a look at some of the names still available in the trenches. I already mentioned Yannick Ngakoue, but there's 2 other guys that stand out on top of that list as well, Emmanuel Ogbah and Carl Lawson. I like both of those guys, and I think all 3 could be a fit to come in here and give us rotational snaps at defensive end. 2 other guys I have listed on here are Shaq Lawson and Rasheem Green. Both of those are kind of meh options and wouldn't really excite me that much. And then when we look at defensive tackles, there isn't much out there that would excite me at all. I saw some people talking about Linval Joseph. He's a 35-year-old nose tackle who last went to the Pro Bowl in 2017. We need someone who can get after the quarterback, not really a nose tackle. I don't think he's a fit. And Hassan Ridgeway kind of fits the same category there. He's a 29-year-old run stopper with 10 career sacks in 20 starts. Nothing to really get excited about. Not really an impressive list, but there are a couple guys who are mildly intriguing. My top 3 on the defensive line are easily Ngakoue, Ogbah, and Carl Lawson. Depending on Carl Lawson's health, I think he could be a really good fit. We could still use one more defensive end on this line if you ask me, but maybe, just maybe, Ryan Poles and Eberflus are happy with what's on the current roster. We should find out in the next couple of weeks. By far the best remaining player on the free agent market overall is center Connor Williams. I've talked about him multiple times this offseason, and he's rumored to be healthy and ready for the start of training camp. If that's true, I expect he will sign somewhere in the next couple of weeks. It's completely unknown if he's on Ryan Poles' radar or not, but we do have some cap space available. Even though we have a number of players in the last year of their deals, Poles does have the flexibility to add to this roster, and if he really wanted to bring in Connor Williams, he could get it done. But other than Connor Williams, the market is loaded with defensive backs. Honestly, when you look at the amount of cornerbacks still available, maybe Ryan Poles does decide to bring in a player for some competition if he can get him to agree to a super cheap deal. Look at the guys still out there: Xavier Howard, Adoree Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, JC Jackson, and more all still remain free agents. I wouldn't be against bringing in someone like Adoree Jackson or JC Jackson, especially on a one-year prove-it deal to give our secondary even more depth. I just doubt that Stephon Gilmore is that guy. But the same can be said at the safety position as well. Jamal Adams just signed with the Titans this week, but there are still a ton of talented safeties on the market. Justin Simmons, Eddie Jackson, Quandre Diggs, Keanu Neal, Adrian Amos, and a bunch of other names all still remain free agents at the safety position. Unfortunately, that's another spot where our roster is pretty loaded. But I mean, why not bring back someone like an Adrian Amos? If you could convince him to take on a one-year minimum deal as a backup, it's doubtful they will accept something like this. Most of these guys are going to wait till someone gets injured and then try to find a spot where they can start. But the amount of names still available in the defensive backfield is kind of crazy. For the Bears, it's our deepest group on the roster, but if these guys remain without homes for another couple of weeks, maybe, just maybe, Ryan Poles brings in another defensive back. It wouldn't hurt to make our secondary even deeper. One final name I'm going to mention on the free agent list, because of his relationship with Coach Eberflus, is former Colts linebacker Darius, aka Shaq Leonard. He's only 28 years old. We do not need a linebacker, but this is a guy who was a four-time All-Pro working underneath Matt Eberflus. If he remains unsigned deep into camp, what would it hurt to offer him a minimum deal? He would be a backup to TJ Edwards and give us a four-time All-Pro as a backup. This one's probably not going to happen, but I had to mention it due to his close relationship with Matt Eberflus. There is clearly more talent available on the defensive side of the ball, but just a quick look at the offensive guys still available for those interested. I mentioned the two biggest names, Connor Williams and David Bakhtiari, but there are a few more tackles and some other skill position players. We don't really need another wide receiver either, but Michael Thomas and Hunter Renfrow have something left in the tank. Both of those guys have talent. People have also thrown out the name of Ryan Tannehill as a veteran quarterback option. I do not think he's a great fit, and there's not a ton of talent remaining on offense, but there are a couple of names like Dalvin Cook and Cam Akers as well. But this is the last weekend of the year without Chicago Bears football, as rookies report to training camp on Tuesday and veterans are reporting on Friday. Speaking of camp, if you have an extra ticket for the joint practice on the 15th, let me know. This is always going to be a Chicago Bears channel, but I did one Chicago Bulls video today going in depth on the rebuild and giving my take on the future of the franchise. Check that one out if you missed it. Stay tuned, guys. Remember to hit that like button for me. And until next time, bear down.